What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Angry Ginger Podcast, the show where we talk about life, bad decisions, questionable choices, and occasionally wonder why the hell we keep doing the same things over and over again. I'm your host, Chris, and today we're talking about dating again. I know, you're probably thinking, Chris, haven't you beat this horse enough to death? Apparently not, because I've come to a conclusion. I think I'm done. Not angry, not bitter, not swearing off women forever. I'm just done looking for love. And honestly, getting to this point has been one hell of a journey. I've been single, I've been married, I've been divorced, I've been in relationships that made absolutely no sense. I've been ghosted, I've been rejected. I've made some terrible decisions. I've made some decisions that, looking back, were actually pretty damn good. And I've apparently spent the last 20 something years collecting dating stories like some kind of emotional Pokemon trainer. Except instead of catching them all, I've mostly caught nothing but disappointment. Today we're going to go way back, before the marriage, before the divorce, back to when I was in my 20s, living in Watertown, South Dakota, going to school and trying to figure out life. Let me tell you, my dating resume from that period is not exactly something I'd hand to a potential employer. There was a woman who had me leaving her place without my underwear or socks. There was the infamous burning a mix CD situation. There was the woman whose incarcerated fiance was about to get released. There was the drunk girl who passed out on my apartment floor. There was the woman I liked but never pursued because she was dating a friend of mine. And there was a woman I actually did date and probably screwed up myself. And then fast forward to after my divorce, and somehow the universe decided that I hadn't suffered enough. A woman chose homelessness over being with me. Another chose an absolute disastrous living situation over building a life with me. And then the woman I actually wanted, the one who told me she was in love with me, ghosted me a week later without giving me a single explanation. And at some point, you have to just stop and ask, is this dating or is God just fucking with me? Here's the thing. I don't want this episode to be a women are terrible rant, because they're not. I've made plenty of mistakes myself, and I've been the asshole in some of these stories. I've ignored red flags, I've made horrible decisions, I've hurt people, and I've probably missed opportunities because I was too stubborn, too scared, or too damn stupid to recognize them at the time. So this isn't about blaming anybody. It's about looking at the whole ridiculous journey and asking whether I'm actually better off stopping the search. Because maybe I've been looking at this all wrong. Maybe finding love isn't something you chase. Maybe it's something that happens while you're busy living your life. So today I'm going to tell you why I think I've finally thrown in the towel. Not on love, just looking for it. And if you've ever been single later in life, if you've ever been divorced, if you've ever been ghosted, or if you've ever looked at your dating history and thought, what the hell am I doing? Then this one's probably for you. This is the Angry Ginger Podcast. This isn't a new problem. I've been doing this for a long time. And if my dating history were a resume, I'm pretty sure nobody would hire me. Actually, I'm not sure they'd even let me through the front door. Let's go all the way back. And when I was 22, I had just moved to Watertown, South Dakota to go to Lake Area Technical Institute when I was getting my my associate's degree in computer science. And here's the thing, I didn't know anybody. So what did I do? I drove home constantly. I moved to Watertown for school, and I'd go to class, and I'd go back to my apartment, and then I'd drive all the way back home to my hometown because apparently I hadn't figured out that making friends was an important part of going to school. I was basically paying tuition to live in another town and then spending my weekends pretending to still lived at home. Eventually, though, I started meeting people, and that's when things got interesting. Now I'm going to tell these stories in no particular order because honestly, my dating life doesn't have a plot. It's more like a collection of deleted scenes. So let's get into it. The missing underwear incident. There was this one woman I ended up spending the night with. Everything seemed normal enough going into it. What I didn't know was that she was taking medication for a serious mental health condition. And at some point during that night, she had what I can only describe as an incident. And I'm not going to get into the details because some stories don't need a director's commentary. Let's just say I decided I needed to leave immediately. And apparently I was in such a hurry I left without any underwear or socks. I don't even remember exactly how it happened, but there's something humbling about making a walk of shame while wearing approximately half the clothing you arrived in. I wasn't looking for love that night. I was looking for my pants. And that should have been my first clue that things weren't going to go smoothly. So let's go on to my next one, the burning a mix CD incident. A month or so later, I get invited to this woman's dorm room. College, we're in our 20s. Apparently, there was a little bit of code in college, and I learned that apparently when someone says they're going to burn a mix CD, that may not necessarily be about music. I arrived, eventually figured out what the evening was all about, and then realized, yeah, maybe this isn't what I expected, but I'm going to go along with it. And then things happened. And instead of being a mature adult and saying, hey, I'm not interested, I'm going to head home, I apparently decided the best strategy was get myself kicked out. That's right. Rather than communicate like a functioning human being, I tried to make myself so much of an asshole that I would be forcibly removed from the premises. 20 something Chris had an absolutely incredible approach to the conflict resolution. Now, once I started meeting people back in Watertown and started sticking around, I started meeting some people there. Um, we're going to move on to Miss Hollywood if she could. There was a woman I eventually nicknamed her Miss Hollywood if she could, and let me tell you, she earned that name because she neglected to mention one fairly important detail. She had a fiance who was in prison and was getting released soon. Now, I'm all for honesty in a relationship, but that's one of those things I feel you should probably put somewhere towards the top of the conversation. Hey, Chris, I'm Holly. Nice to meet you. By the way, my fiance is currently incarcerated, but he'll be home soon. That's not a red flag. That's an entire parade. Fortunately, I found out before this guy got released and before I became the subject of a Dateline episode. I narrowly avoided a confrontation with him and walked away from that one thinking, well, that's enough excitement for a while. Apparently not. Then there was a woman who I had absolutely no intentions of getting involved with. None. But she had apparently had other plans. She got extremely intoxicated one night while we were hanging out, and I was intoxicated as well. During that time, she decided that she wanted to be interested in me. She made a move, and then shortly after I had said I'm not interested, she passed out on my apartment floor. So now I'm standing there looking at this situation thinking, well, this isn't going anything like I thought this night was going to. I decided to call her sober friend. She came and picked her up. And that was the end of that. Except apparently she was so embarrassed by the entire situation that she stopped talking to me altogether, which honestly I understand. If I had passed out on somebody's apartment floor after making a move on them, I might want to move to another state. So I really can't blame her. So let's move on to the woman that I never pursued. There was this woman that I was actually interested in Watertown. I never made a move on her though. Why? Because she was dating a friend of mine. And that's one line that I never cross. I liked her, thought she was attractive, we got along, we were very compatible, but she was with my friend, so I left it alone. Because sometimes the smartest thing you can do in dating is absolutely nothing. And that's probably the only story that in this entire segment where I actually demonstrated good judgment. Now, let's get on to the one that I let get away. This girl, I really did like her, and we started seeing each other. Things were good. She was kind. She was genuinely a good person. And then I was getting ready to move to the opposite side of South Dakota. And I knew myself well enough to know that long distance relationships weren't something that I handled particularly well. So I ended it. And honestly, I was the asshole in that one. And there's no clever punchline there. I liked her. She didn't do anything wrong. The timing was just terrible, and I made the decision that I thought was right at the time. Now, she's happily married, has children, and honestly, I'm genuinely happy for her. Sometimes you can look back at something you screwed up and still be glad that the other person ended up exactly where they were supposed to be. And that's something I've learned as I've gotten older. Not every failed relationship means somebody has to be a villain. Sometimes two people just aren't supposed to end up together. Now, fast forward 20 years, and then we get to the more recent chapters. I get divorced. And I figure, okay, I'm a single guy again. Maybe dating will be different this time. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. In fact, I'm starting to think that the universe has been building toward one giant punchline. Because after my divorce, my dating resume gets even stranger. I had a woman choose being homeless over being with me. I've had another woman decide she'd rather live in an absolute disaster of a situation with her 10-year-old son than build a life with me. And then there was the woman that I really, really wanted. The one who told me she was in love with me, only to ghost me about a week later. Really, no explanation or conversation about it. Just gone. That one really got to me because when somebody you don't really care that much about disappears, you shrug, you move on. But when it's a person that you really thought that something could go somewhere, that's different. That's the one that makes you question everything. And eventually, I started looking at my entire dating history and thinking, what the hell am I doing? Because at some point, you have to stop blaming everybody else. Because there's one common denominator in every one of these stories, and it's me. And that's when I started wondering, maybe I'm not unlucky. Maybe this is karma. Maybe this is my penance for being an absolute asshat to my parents when I was a teenager. Maybe somewhere in the universe there's a cosmic ledger that says, 1996, talked back to mom. 1997, gave dad attitude. 2001, made questionable dating decisions. 2026, yeah, we're gonna have some fun with this guy. And honestly, wouldn't be surprised. Because at this point, I've stopped figuring out, or tried to figure out, why my dating life is such a disaster. I've started wondering whether the universe is just bored. And that's where I've arrived today. I'm tired. Not bitter, not angry at women, just tired. I'm tired of trying to decode people. I'm tired of wondering where I stand. I'm tired of getting attached to somebody who isn't sure what they want. I'm tired of putting myself out there only to find that apparently I'm auditioning for a role that nobody actually plans to cast. And I think that's why I finally reached the point where I'm throwing in the towel. Not on love. I believe in love. I just, I don't honestly think that I can say that. But I'm throwing in the towel. I'm looking for it. If somebody comes into my life someday and makes it better, great. I'll make room. But I'm done chasing it. Because maybe, just maybe, the best thing I can do is stop looking for somebody to complete my life and start enjoying the life that I've already got. And if love happens to find me while I'm doing that, well, after everything else I've been through, I think I deserve a little damn luck. So let's talk about dating in your 40s. Because if you're listening to this and you're somewhere around my age, you already know dating in your 40s isn't dating when you're 20. It's not even close. When you're 20, you meet somebody at a bar, you think they're attractive, you talk for a while, maybe you get their phone number, maybe you go out, maybe you hook up, maybe you date, maybe it goes nowhere. Then you move on. It's pretty simple. Because when you're 20, you're basically a blank slate. You don't have 20 years of relationships behind you. You don't have an ex-wife. You don't have an ex-husband. You don't have kids. You don't have a mortgage. You don't have an emotional baggage stacked up to the ceiling. You don't have a relationship history that could fill 3 seasons of a Netflix series. You're just young and stupid. And honestly, that was probably easier because when you're in your 40s, Everybody comes with a story. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I have a story. Everybody does. Some of us have been married. Some of us have been divorced. Some have kids. Some have been cheated on. Some have been the cheaters. Some have been hurt, and some have been hurt. Some of us have hurt others. Some people have spent years in relationships that completely change how they look at love. And then you meet somebody, and you're not just dating them, you're dating everything that happened to them before you. And they're dating everything that happened to you. That's a lot of baggage to put in the overhead compartment. And somebody's always trying to make you gate check it. Then there's the expectations. When you're 20, you don't necessarily know what you want. You might say you want a serious relationship, but what you really want is somebody to drink beer with and make out with on Friday nights. And that's okay. You're 20. You don't have to have your life figured out. But when you're in your 40s, you better have some idea. Because I'm not looking to spend 6 months or a year and a half trying to figure out whether somebody actually wants a relationship. I'm not looking to play the what are we game. I'm too old for that shit. And that's one of the hardest things about modern dating. People don't always tell you what they actually want. They tell you what sounds good. Sometimes even they don't know what they want. You meet somebody, the chemistry is great, you're talking every day, you're making plans. Everything seems like it's moving in the right direction. And then something changes. The messages get shorter. The phone calls disappear. Plans get vague, and suddenly you're sitting there wondering, did I do something? Did I say something? Is there somebody else? Did they just lose interest? Instead of having an adult conversation, you get silence. And that's where the ghosting comes in. We talked about this in episode 2. I've talked about it in Ginger Grievance. And apparently, I'm still not done talking about it because I still don't understand it. If you're not interested in somebody anymore, just tell them. You don't have to write a 12-page breakup letter. You don't need a PowerPoint presentation. Just say, hey, I'm not feeling this anymore. That's it. I'll be disappointed. I'll survive. What I can't understand is disappearing and leaving somebody sitting there wondering what the hell happened. Because closure isn't always about getting the answer you want. Sometimes closure is just knowing the truth. And I think that's something that becomes more important as you get older. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm not looking for some Instagram model. I'm not looking for somebody who's going to agree with everything that I say. I actually like people who challenge me. I want somebody with their own life, their own interests, their own opinions. But I do want honesty. I want consistency. I want somebody who actually communicates. And apparently, I'm I've just described a mythical creature because that's something surprisingly difficult to find. And maybe that's a part of why I've gotten to this point. I'm not looking for somebody to save me. I'm not looking for somebody to make me happy. I can do that myself. What I want is somebody who makes life better. Somebody where we both wake up and think, hey, I'm glad you're here. That's it. And maybe that's too much to ask. Or maybe I'm just I'm just looking in the wrong places because let's be honest, dating apps have completely changed the game. When I was 20, if if I wanted to meet somebody, I actually had to meet somebody. You went to a bar or a concert, a friend's party, bowling alley, college event. You talk to an actual human being. Now, I can sit on my couch in sweatpants, eat pizza, and reject somebody based on 6 photographs and a 3-word biography. We've somehow turned dating into an online shopping. Swipe left, swipe right. Next. And we're all doing it. We're judging people based on pictures, a bathroom selfie, a picture holding a fish, a picture with a dog, a picture from 5 years ago where they look completely different. And then there's the profile. Love to travel. Well, everybody loves to travel. Love to laugh. Well, I sure hope so. Looking for someone who doesn't take themselves too seriously. Apparently, that's code for I have no idea what I want or I'm looking for. And then you match, you start talking, and for a few days it feels promising. You think, maybe this is different. And that's the dangerous part because hope is what keeps you going back. You tell yourself, maybe this time, maybe this person is different. Maybe this one actually means what they say. Maybe this one isn't going to disappear. Maybe this one won't come with a fiance in prison. Maybe this one won't choose homelessness. Maybe this one won't tell you they're in love with you and disappear a week later. At some point, you start wondering if the problem isn't dating. Maybe it's the fact that we're all walking around trying to find somebody while simultaneously being terrified of actually letting somebody get close. Everybody wants a connection, but nobody wants vulnerability. Everybody wants honesty until the truth hurts. Everybody wants communication until conversation is uncomfortable. Everybody wants someone emotionally available until that person actually has emotions. And I think that's where I've landed. I'm not angry that dating is difficult. I'm just tired of participating in the game because I don't want to spend the next 10 years swiping left and right, trying to convince somebody that I'm worth getting to know, while I'm simultaneously trying to figure out whether they're actually interested in me. I don't want to audition. I don't want to chase. I don't want to convince. I want something that's mutual. Something where I don't have to constantly wonder where I stand. And maybe that's unrealistic. Maybe I'm expecting too much. But I'd rather be alone than be with somebody who makes me feel alone. And that's the difference. That's probably the biggest thing I've learned from all this. Being single isn't the problem. Being lonely while you're with somebody, that's the problem. So maybe I'm not actually giving up on love. Maybe I'm just giving up on the version of dating that I've been trying to make work. And if somebody comes along someday, somebody who wants to exactly what I want, who communicates, who shows up, who doesn't disappear when things get real, uh, yeah, I've had that recently. I'll give it a shot. But until then, I'm just gonna stop chasing it because I've spent enough time looking for somebody else. I think it's time that I finally enjoy just being me. All right. I've spent the last couple of segments telling you about all the things that have gone wrong with my dating life. And believe me, there are plenty more stories where those came from. But at some point, you have to stop talking about what you don't want and figure out what the hell you actually do want. Because what I actually wanted was when I was 21 isn't necessarily what I want now. And thank God for that. 21-year-old Chris had a pretty simple checklist. Is she attractive? Does she like me? Does she want to hang out? Perfect. We're good. That was basically the interview process. There wasn't a 5 year plan. There wasn't a conversation about communication styles. There wasn't a discussion about emotional availability. There definitely wasn't a conversation about retirement accounts. I was 21. I barely knew what I was having for dinner that night. But when you get into your 40s, things change. You start realizing that attraction is important, but it's not enough because you can be incredibly attracted to somebody and still be completely incompatible with them. You can have amazing chemistry and absolute terrible communication. Case in point, the woman that I was in love with, that told me she was in love with me and disappeared. You can have incredible physical attraction and realize you have no idea how to actually live life together. And I've learned that the hard way. So what do I actually want now? Honestly, I want somebody who I can laugh with. That might sound simple, but that's huge. I want somebody where we can sit around doing absolutely nothing and somehow still have a good time. I don't need every weekend to be some elaborate date. Sometimes I just want to order food, sit on the couch with something, watch something stupid, and laugh until we're crying. I want somebody who can make fun of me and take it when I make fun of her. Because if we can't make fun of each other, we're probably not going to survive very long around each other. I want somebody who has her own life. And I mean that. I don't want to be somebody's entire world. I was that throughout my entire marriage. And it totally became a one sided thing. I don't want somebody to become my entire world. I want two people who already have lives, who choose to build something together. That's where the difference is. I want somebody with her own friends, her own hobbies, her own interests. If you want to go out with your girlfriends, go. If I want to disappear for a few hours and ride my motorcycle or hang with the boys, let me go. I'll come back, probably hungry, probably sunburned because I'm a ginger. but I'll come back. I don't need somebody who's attached to my hip 24 hours a day. I hate that. I just need to know that when we're apart, we're still choosing each other. And probably more than anything, I want and I need communication, real communication. If something's bothering you, tell me. If you're losing interest, tell me. If I pissed you off, believe me, I'll probably know anyway, but tell me. Don't make me guess. Don't disappear. Don't start acting differently and expect me to figure out what's happening through a series of increasingly shorter text messages. Just fucking talk to me. I'm a grown man. I can handle the truth. And that's something that I didn't necessarily understand when I was younger. I used to think that if two people loved each other, everything would just work. Now I know that's bullshit. Love doesn't automatically make you compatible. Love doesn't fix communication. Love doesn't fix trust. Love doesn't fix resentment. And love definitely doesn't make somebody stay if they don't want to. I think that's one of the hardest lessons that I've learned. If you can't convince somebody to love you, you can't be good enough to make somebody actually choose you. You can't love somebody so hard that they suddenly become ready for a relationship. And you can't chase somebody into giving you something that they're not willing to give. I've tried, and all it does is make you exhausted. So now I want something mutual. I want to know that I'm not the only person trying. I want somebody who reaches out because she wants to talk to me, not because I haven't texted her in 12 hours. I want somebody who makes plans, not somebody who says, we'll see. I want somebody who actually wants me in her life. And I want to feel that, not wonder about it. There's another thing I want now that I probably didn't understand when I was a little bit younger. I want peace. And I don't mean boring. I still want passion and chemistry. I still want that feeling when somebody looks at you and you know exactly what they're thinking. I'm not dead. I'm still a guy. Come on. But I don't want chaos anymore. I've had enough chaos in my life. I don't want a relationship where I'm constantly wondering if we're okay. I don't want to be walking on eggshells. I don't want to spend my nights analyzing text messages like they're classified government documents. I don't want to wonder why somebody suddenly changed. I want to feel secure. I want to feel wanted. And I want the person I'm with to feel the same way. Maybe that's what getting older does to you. When you're younger, you chase excitement. When you're older, you start appreciating peace. And I've learned that peace doesn't mean that there isn't passion. It means you don't have to sacrifice your peace to have that passion. And maybe that's why I've reached the point where I'm okay being alone. Because being alone isn't the same thing as being lonely. And I've learned that, believe me, I can have a great day by myself. I can ride my motorcycle. I can work on my podcast. I can hang out with my friends. I can watch a movie. Hell, I can make myself dinner and I can live my life. I don't need somebody standing next to me to prove that I'm worth something. If somebody eventually comes along who fits into that life, that's great. I'll make room. But I'm not going to tear my life apart anymore trying to make room for somebody who isn't sure that they want to be there. That's the difference between how I looked at relationships when I was 21 and how I look at them now. Back then, I wanted somebody to make me feel complete. Now, I want somebody who makes an already good life even better. And if that's too much to ask, well, I guess I'm gonna be single for a while because I'm not lowering that bar just because I'm tired of looking at it. I've spent enough time trying to find somebody. Maybe it's time I just live. And if love finds me while I'm doing that, I'll be ready. If But I'm not chasing anymore because I've finally figured out something that took me a long goddamn time to understand. The right person shouldn't feel like something you have to convince into happening. It should just feel like two people both looking at each other and saying, yeah, let's do this. All right, now, we've gotten a little serious for the last couple of segments, so I think we need to lighten things up. And after going through my dating history, I've come to a realization I could probably open a museum. Not an art museum or a history museum. No, I could open the Chris Birch Museum of Dating Red Flags. And let me tell you, we'd need a pretty big building. So, welcome everybody. Admission is free, but emotional damage is not covered by the museum. Exhibit number one, the incarcerated fiance. Right over here, we have a classic Miss Hollywood if she could. Now, if you're new to the show, she neglected to mention one tiny detail that she's got a fiance who was in prison and getting released very soon. I'm no relationship expert, but I feel that's information you probably should put somewhere near the top of a dating profile, maybe right underneath your name. Hi, I'm Holly. I'm 25. I love long walks on the beach, and my fiance will be home from prison next month. At least then everybody knows what they're getting into. Exhibit number two, the ghost. This one is extremely popular in the modern dating world. You meet somebody, you talk, you hit it off. You're texting every day, everything seems great, then one day, nothing. You text, nothing. You wait, nothing. You think, maybe she's busy. You text again, still nothing. Congratulations, you've been ghosted. No explanation, no goodbye. Just poof, she's gone. And apparently, this is considered normal now. Back in the day, if you didn't want to talk to somebody anymore, you actually had to tell them. Now you can just disappear and pretend they never existed. Exhibit number three, the red flag I ignored. Now, this exhibit is dedicated to me because I've learned something important. Sometimes the problem isn't the other person. Sometimes you're the idiot standing there looking directly at the warning signs thinking, yeah, but she's really hot. That's not optimism, that's stupidity with good lighting. I've ignored red flags. I've made bad decisions. I've stayed too long. I've walked away too quickly. I've been the problem. And I'm willing to admit it. Yeah. Exhibit number four, the situationship. Still don't fully understand this one. You're not dating, but you're dating. You're exclusive, but you're not exclusive. You're together, but you're not together. You spend all your time together, but nobody knows what you are. Eventually, somebody asks, so what are we? And suddenly everyone needs to go home. That's not a relationship, that's a hostage negotiation. Exhibit number five. I'm not looking for anything serious. One of the classics. Now, sometimes people genuinely aren't looking for something serious, and that's perfectly fine. But sometimes what they really mean is I'm not looking for anything serious with you. And that's an important distinction because apparently we don't say that part out loud anymore. So, after all of this, I've learned one thing there are red flags everywhere. And I'm sure I've been one of somebody else's red flags, probably several. The goal isn't to find a person with absolutely no problems. Obviously, that person doesn't exist. The goal is to find somebody whose problems don't make you want to fake your own death and move to another country. And honestly, after the dating resume that I've just given you, maybe I should stop giving advice altogether because clearly I'm not exactly batting 1,000 here. All right, that's enough red flags for the day. Let's move on. Now we are moving on to the ginger grievance. It's all about communication, love, and self worth. This week, I'm going to talk about something that I think is a hell of a lot more important than people realize communication. Now, I'm not talking about texting somebody back in 30 seconds. I'm not talking about being available 24 hours a day. I'm not saying that you have to explain every little thing you do. I'm talking about just something much simpler letting somebody know where they stand. Because I've learned something about relationships recently. Uncertainty can mess with your head. And I think people underestimate just how much. Most of us understand why cheating hurts. When somebody cheats on you, it doesn't just hurt because they slept with somebody else. It makes you question yourself. You start asking, was I not enough? Was I not attractive enough? What did they have that I didn't? What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I worth being faithful to? It could absolutely destroy somebody's confidence. And here's where I think something similar happens with poor communication. I'm not saying being ghosted is the same as being cheated on. It is not. But the emotional question it can leave behind can be remarkably similar. Because imagine somebody tells you, I love you. Those aren't small words. You don't hear those and just forget them. You believe them. You start building an emotional reality around them. You start thinking, okay, this person loves me. This person wants me in their life. Maybe this is real. And then suddenly, nothing. No explanation, no conversation, no indication of where you stand. You just left there. And now you're asking yourself the same questions. Did I do something wrong? Did I misunderstand everything? Was she really in love with me? Was I not enough? Did something change? Why wouldn't she just tell me? And that's the part that bothers me. Because when you refuse to communicate with somebody you've told you love them, you're not just leaving them without information, you're leaving them alone with their own thoughts. And your brain is not always your friend when you're sitting there trying to fill the blanks. Because when you don't have an answer, you create one. And most of the time, you create the worst one. You start picking yourself apart. You replay conversations. You think about things you said, things you didn't say, things you could have done differently. You start wondering if you were too much or not enough, too needy or too distant, too available or not available enough. And eventually, you can start questioning your own worth. And that's why I keep coming back to this 30-second text, because sometimes that's all it takes. You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to have some deep emotional conversation just to tell somebody that where you stand. Hey, I need some space. Hey, I don't think this is working. Hey, something came up and I can't make it. Right there. Hey, or hey, my feelings change. Whatever it is, just tell me, because I'd rather be hurt by the truth than destroyed by the uncertainty. And this is where my personal experience comes into it. I've talked about the woman who told me she was in love with me and then shortly afterward disappeared. And I want to be fair. I don't know what's going on inside her head. I don't know what she's thinking. I don't know why she made the decisions she made. And I'm not going to pretend I do. But what I do know is what the lack of communication did to me. It made me question myself. It made me question what was real. It made me question whether I had imagined the connection. And that's a shitty place to put somebody. Because if you tell me you love me and then you decide you don't want me in your life, okay, that's going to hurt. But I can handle the truth. What I can't handle is being told one thing and then being left with absolutely no idea where I stand. Because now I'm not just dealing with losing somebody, I'm dealing with trying to understand what the fuck happened. And there's a difference. I think people sometimes assume that if they don't say anything, they're avoiding hurting somebody's feelings, but they're not. They're just transferring the pain somewhere else. Instead of hurting somebody with an honest conversation, you're making them hurt themselves trying to figure out the answer. And I'd rather have the honest conversation every damn time. Tell me if you don't want me. Tell me you've changed your mind. Tell me you met somebody else. Tell me you're scared. Tell me that you don't know what you want. Tell me anything, but don't tell me you love me and then leave me wondering whether I even mattered. Because that's the part that sticks with you. And maybe that's why I've gotten to the point that I'm at now. I'm not afraid of rejection. I'm afraid of investing myself into somebody who won't communicate with me when things get difficult or real. Because I can survive somebody saying, hey, I don't want this. What I don't want to survive again is somebody making me wonder whether I was ever worth wanting in the first place. So yeah, that's my ginger grievance this week. Communication. Not because I expect perfection, not because I expect somebody to always say the right thing, but because if you care about somebody, give them the courtesy of letting them know where they stand. You might hurt them with the truth, but at least they'll know the truth. And sometimes that's the difference between heartbreak and spending months wondering what the hell is wrong with you. And for anybody listening who's been on the receiving end of that, let me tell you something. Somebody else's inability to communicate does not determine your worth. Don't let their silence become your definition of yourself, because you deserve an answer. And if they won't give you one, you may eventually have to give yourself one. And sometimes the answer is simply, I deserved better communication than this. Well, I think that's probably enough emotional damage for one episode. We've covered a lot tonight. Some pretty ridiculous dating stories, some decisions I'm proud of, and some decisions I absolutely wasn't. And a few things that, looking back, probably should have come with a warning label. But underneath all the jokes, I think there's something I've been trying to figure out for a long time. What happens when you finally get tired of looking? And I think I finally figured out my answer. I'm not giving up on love. I'm just giving up on chasing it. And there's a difference. I'm not going to spend the next few years swiping through dating apps, trying to convince somebody I'm worth getting to know. I'm not going to chase somebody who isn't sure about me. I'm not going to sit around analyzing text messages wondering where I stand. And I'm definitely not going to let somebody else's inability to communicate make me question my own worth. If somebody comes into my life and she wants to be there and she communicates and she shows up and we make each other's lives better, I'll give it a shot. Absolutely. But until then, I'm going to live. I'm going to ride my bike. I'm going to make this podcast. I'm going to laugh. I'm going to spend time with the people I care about. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm probably going to make some more bad decisions. Let's be honest. That's basically the foundation of the show. But I'm going to enjoy my life because I've realized something. Being single isn't a failure. Being alone doesn't mean you're unwanted. And somebody walking away from you doesn't mean you aren't worth staying for. Sometimes people leave because they're not capable of giving you what you need. Sometimes people change their minds. Sometimes timing sucks. Sometimes you're the asshole and sometimes they're the asshole. And sometimes nobody's the asshole. Two people just weren't right for each other. That's life. Maybe someday I'll meet somebody who changes my mind about all this. I hope I do. I really do. But I'm not going to sit around waiting for her because I've got a life to live in the meantime. So if you're listening to this and you're single, especially if you're sitting there wondering if something is wrong with you because somebody didn't choose you, don't make that mistake. Their decision doesn't determine your value. Their silence doesn't determine your worth. Their inability to communicate doesn't mean you weren't worth communicating with. And if you're in a relationship right now, here's my advice. Tell that person that you love them. If you're upset, tell them. If something changes, tell them. If you can't make it, send the damn 30-second text because you never know what somebody is going through inside their own head. And sometimes a little honesty can save somebody from a whole lot of unnecessary pain. That's going to do it for this episode of the Angry Ginger Podcast. If you've been listening through all this, thank you. Seriously. Every download, every follow, every comment, every person who shares an episode, it means more than you actually realize. And if you want to support the show, head over to theangrygingerpodcast.com. Check out the merch. Rep the chaos because apparently, if I'm going to be single, I might as well have a podcast and some cool shirts, hats, hoodies, everything to show for it. Go buy yourself a whiskey glass. Those are nice. They're pretty damn sweet. Until next time, take care of yourself. Take care of the people you love. Communicate. And don't ever let somebody else's inability to communicate till you see your own self-worth. Don't let it make you forget yourself. I'm Chris. This is the Angry Ginger Podcast. Stay angry, laugh at the chaos, and if love finds you along the way, well, maybe don't run from it. And I'll see you next time.